Good morning, everybody. Chuck Holton here, and I am at my home in West Virginia. It is about 10:30 in the morning on, what day is it today? Tuesday, December 19th. And we're having a great time. We always enjoy Christmas here at the lodge. I don't get to spend a lot of time here at the lodge, as you can imagine. We are normally traveling 200 plus days a year, and my real home is in Panama, my abode, as they say. And so my time here in West Virginia is limited, and I try to enjoy every minute of it when I can. So we are very happy that you're here joining me today. And I hope it's as beautiful outside where you live as it is where I live. We got about 1.5 or 2 inches of snow last night, which makes the grandkids real happy. And we've been out sledding and pulling them around with the side-by-side and stuff like that. So we're having a good time. Okay, I wanted to talk today about just the crisis of manhood worldwide. I mean, there is a real problem that I see everywhere I go. You've probably heard me mention before, I absolutely despise cowardice in all of its forms. And I've come to despise cowardice because I've realized how damaging it is to our society as a whole. And so one of the things, as a father of 3 sons and 2 daughters, I wanted to teach my sons just how important it is to be a man. But one of the things that you find is that, boys want to become men. I mean, boys aspire to be men, but they don't really get a good definition of that from our culture. And because of that, they end up engaging in all sorts of behaviors that are not exactly positive, not exactly helpful or healthy. And those behaviors are, we see them because these boys are trying to define for themselves what manhood looks like. And they're trying to show the world, I've got what it takes, and show themselves that they have what it takes. So a lot of the unhealthy behaviors we see are boys just trying to answer that question of, how do I know that I'm a man? Somebody wants to see the snow, okay? I'll show you the snow real quick because it's beautiful. Gorgeous outside. Look at that. All the little footprints running all over from the kids and the dogs. The pond is not frozen over though, so it's not too terribly cold, and that's good. I just dropped my charging cable. All right, so I wanted my boys, when they started to ask themselves, how do I know that I'm a man? How do I know I've made it? I've achieved that goal. I wanted them to have a good definition to go by so that they wouldn't feel the need to engage in lots of unhealthy behaviors. I mean, we see guys drive their motorcycle 900 miles an hour down the freeway and kill themselves all the time. What would possess a guy to drive that fast? Well, he's a boy. He's trying to, people don't do anything for no reason. Here's the example I always give is, you see these guys with the giant pickup trucks, and they've got a big pair of plastic testicles hanging on the back of their pickup truck. And you gotta think like, okay, what would possess a guy to pay money for that? What message is he trying to send? Well, he's not trying to say, my truck is a boy. Thank you, MM. That's very kind. I appreciate all of the contributions. He's not trying to say, my truck is a boy. He's trying to say, I'm a boy. He's trying to say, I'm a big man. And he's doing that by making his truck anatomically correct, which is just weird. It's just strange, And so when we say that a guy is trying to answer those questions, a lot of times those things are unhealthy behaviors. We see, like when I was a kid, my friends and I we had this game where we'd get up on the roof, and we had to stand on the roof of our one-story ranch house. We had these big bushes that grew up right to the eaves, big like cedar kind of bushes. And you had to put your arms down by your sides and then jump head first into the bush. And if you stuck, you won. If you fell out, you had to do it again. I go back and think about just how dumb that actually was. But what were we trying to do? We were trying to prove our courage. We were trying to prove our manhood to each other. I'm as guilty as anybody of acting that way. And in reality, if I think about why I joined the military, as a matter of fact, today is a special day, so I'm going to wear my patrol cap today. How about that? There we go. I'm going to wear my Ranger patrol cap that I carried with me for 4 years in the 75th Ranger Regiment. And of course, you have to roll it like that. See, you see that? See, Sergeant Holton. On the back of this thing is some cat eyes, and that's so you can find your way. You can see the guy in front of you when you're on patrol. Now, let's see here. Can I get that right? Okay. The reason that today is a special day is because, let's see, 34 years ago tonight, I parachuted into Panama during Operation Just Cause, and was in the first aircraft out of about 13 aircraft to parachute onto Rio Hato Airfield in Panama, and got my baptism by fire in combat. So, and I keep this old patrol cap because it reminds me of those days. So, if I think about why I joined the military, though, really, I joined the military because I needed to answer that question for myself. I needed to know that I was a man. And I got picked on a lot in high school. I was a little skinny kid. I was like 120 pounds, 125 pounds when I joined the Army. And so I got picked on a lot in high school. And I needed something tangible that I could point to, like that Ranger tab right there, and say, you see that? That means that I'm a man, and you can't deny it because I'm a big tough guy, see? And so I wouldn't say that's necessarily unhealthy, to act out in that way, or to behave in that way to try to prove myself. But it certainly was not acting out of my strength. It was acting out of my weakness of not knowing that I was a man. So I wanted my sons, if they decided to join the Army, or if they decided to get a big pickup truck or drive their motorcycle, I just didn't want them to do that out of their weakness. I wanted them to be able to act out of the strength of their convictions, the confidence in knowing that they have what it takes to be a man. And so I was hoping that would be what I could give them. I wanted to define manhood for them in a way that would make it more likely that they would make good choices and not feel the need to, punch a bunch of holes in their body and, look like they took a header into a tackle box, or, put a tattoo in the middle of their face or something like that. I don't think there's necessarily, in and of itself anything wrong with getting a tattoo. I think where the sin could come in is in, again, acting out of your weakness. I think, I think that in many cases, not all, but in many cases, a tattoo is a sign of insecurity on the part of the person getting it. Not all. I know you guys are going to crucify me for saying that, but that's my opinion, because I like to ask people about their tattoos. Hey, why'd you get that, tattoo in the middle of your face? And obviously, if somebody got a tattoo in their face, they want people to notice him. And so I ask them about it. Is there a story behind it or what? And most of the time, I hear regret. I hear regret. Well, I was drunk, or well, I was, whatever. And so, well, there's my sweet little girl and my granddaughter. Come here, baby.
Oh, you want to say hi?
Oh, she's not feeling good.
Oh, she's not right. She just wants Grammy.
Okay, she just wants Grandma. All right. Well, anyway, so I set out to. You're right. I got something. I need a clean T-shirt. Thank you very much. I got something on my T-shirt. I'm not sure what that is. I've been working around the yard, around the farm, so I tend to end up pretty dirty. So I wanted to give my sons a yardstick. I wanted to give them something that they could learn, they could look at. Thank you very much. Is that Earl Grey? Everybody wants to know what kind of tea I'm drinking. I just drink whatever my wife gives me. I think this is something lemony. I'm not sure. I'm not a connoisseur of tea. I just drink it because my voice is shot. Grandpa garb. Nice. But thank you very much, David. I appreciate that. So I wanted to give my sons something that they could use as a measuring stick. And so what I did was I set out I kind of realized when my kids were little, I was in my mid-30s and I hadn't quite really figured out the whole manhood thing for myself yet. If somebody asked me to define manhood, I would have kind of had a hard time with that. And I was already speaking around the country. I had published my first book, A More Elite Soldier. And I was speaking around the country on the topic of being an elite soldier in God's army, men's groups and stuff everywhere I went. And so I started asking guys, if they knew what manhood was all about. And what I found is that nobody had a really tight definition of what that was. You'd hear a lot of the same words over and over again: courage, honor, duty, things like that. But to really define it, to really nail it down, was more difficult. And so, thank you, Kimball. Very kind of you. What I did was I decided to become an expert on the subject of manhood. And I went out and started interviewing guys that I thought had kind of figured it out. Older men, mature men, guys that I looked up to, my mentors, guys like Oliver North, a good friend of mine who had taken me backpacking since I was young, some old veterans that I knew, and pastors and that sort of thing, and asking them what it meant. My sons, Melinda, are 26, 23, and 21. Thank you, Harry. That's very kind of you to support my mission. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's very kind. I appreciate the support. So I wanted my sons to have a good definition. I started looking around to find a good definition to sort of nail that down. Interviewed a bunch of mature men. I also went through the Bible about 3 times looking for specific examples of good men, what a good man does, bad men, what a bad man does. Sometimes that's the same man. King David he messed up with Bathsheba. Actually, the place he messed up was before Bathsheba. It says in the book of, I think it's 2 Samuel, where there was the springtime of the year when the kings go off to war. And where was David? He was on his couch. It specifically says when the kings go off to war. But where was this king? This king was on his couch. And so that not being out with his men led him to the sin with Bathsheba. But then you look at the end of 2 Samuel when the prophet tells David to go and buy the threshing floor of Araunah. And it's so cool that I was just there in Jerusalem where that happened, like where the threshing floor is, to buy that threshing floor. And Araunah says, well, my king, it's yours. Take it. You take the oxen, take the everything. It's a wine press. It's all yours. And David says, I love this. David says at the end of 2 Samuel, no, I will not make a sacrifice to the Lord my God, which cost me nothing. He knows that a sacrifice is not a sacrifice if it's not a sacrifice. And so I wanted to glean out of that what a good man looks like, what a good man acts like. I also looked through many ancient cultures, because almost every ancient culture in the world had a manhood ritual that they put their sons through, so that their son, once he had completed that, knew, okay, I've crossed the threshold. Now I'm considered a man. And he didn't need to try to drive his motorcycle 900 miles an hour, because he already knew. He had passed the test. In old ancient Hebrew culture, that was the bar mitzvah. And it was between 12 and 14 years old that a boy became a man. In ancient Spartan culture, they had the agoge. In ancient Native American culture, here in the Western Hemisphere, they had a specific ritual that helped a boy become a man. We don't have anything like that, and in America. And so what boys do is they start looking around for some sort of role model. And God forbid they choose, Dennis Rodman or, some guy that shaves his head and paints it blue, or, some sports figure or something that he's just famous because he's a good athlete. I want somebody who's a good person. And if he's a great athlete, great. But I want somebody first and foremost who's a good person. And I don't want them choosing some rock star or rapper or something like that to emulate, which far too many of our young men do, because those are the male role models that they're given, that they're shown. And so, Moon Fairy, it's sad that there are so many women who think the way you do, that there are no real men out there. There are, but they are fewer and further between than they need to be. So out of the 3 years of study that I did on the topic of manhood, what I'd put together is a curriculum of sorts on how to become a man. And I tried to make it very simple so that you could teach it to a 12-year-old, he could memorize it, and when he starts to ask that question, what do I have to do to be a man? He'll have this, and it'll be a yardstick for him that he can measure himself against. And that's where my book, Making Men, came from. Now, I'm telling you this because there's a huge dearth of manhood in our culture. More people need to get their hands on this book. But not only that, I've got about 12 of them left, and they're all signed. And so if you want a signed copy of this, if you get it today, I can probably get it to you by Friday. So you can have it for Christmas. And I've got about a dozen of these left. Same thing. And while I'm at it, I have 2 complete sets of my novels. They're the Task Force Valor series. This is my attempt to write the facets of godly manhood into a action novel series here. It's a military thriller. It's called Task Force Valor. Allah's Fire is the first book. Island Inferno is the second book. And Meltdown is the third book. I've got 2 complete sets of this left here at the lodge. And so They are $30 for the set, and if you're going to have to send an email to me, hotzoneholton@gmail.com. If you want these, the first 2 emails, get them that say they want them. Get these things. I'm not going to take orders through my website because then I'll get way too many orders and I'll have to refund a bunch of money and that sort of thing. So thank you. If any of you want that, tell Connie, email hotzoneholton@gmail.com, and the first 2 get them. Thank you, Peter. Very kind of you. Thank you for the Christmas wishes. Yeah, I actually am very familiar with Trail Life. Peter, he says, get familiar with Trail Life, which is a alternative to the Scouts, which are no longer Boy Scouts. They're not even Girl Scouts. They're just the Scouts, and they're led mostly by degenerates, at least around here. We tried getting our sons into that, and I was not impressed. That's really sad because I was a scout when I was a boy until I got kicked out for starting fires when I wasn't supposed to. But my dad was the fire chief. I was, job security for Dad. Anyway, so let's talk about what I came up with in Making Men. Now, you don't have to buy the book because I'm going to tell you what the book says, but if you want to get a copy of it, I've got a few left, and you can get these on Amazon and anywhere books are sold still in Kindle format and that sort of thing. I also have audio versions of this, and I'll have to put the link to that on my website because I don't think they sell the audio version on Amazon anymore. I don't know why. So we can go through these 5 facets of manhood real quick and maybe even take some questions on that. I just want to go through those. So here's what I came up with that I taught my sons about manhood. This is what a good man looks like. First of all, it's the acronym SHAPE, the shape of a man. So the S stands for submit. I don't care how wealthy you get. I don't care how strong you are. I don't care how famous you are. I don't care how well liked you are. If you have not submitted your life to your Creator, who is the one who bestows manhood upon you, who created you as a male and intended for you to pick up that mantle of manhood, until you have submitted to his authority, you cannot be a man. You can't truly be a man. It's like, I have this pond outside here in my front yard, and that pond is on my property. It belongs to me. One time I looked out there and there was a guy fishing in my pond. I didn't know him. So I walked out there and I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, I'm just fishing." I said, "Did you get permission to fish in the pond?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, I did." I said, "From who?" He said, "Oh, a guy down the street said I could come up here and fish." I said, "Well, that's real nice, but the guy down the street doesn't own the pond. I do. So if you want to get permission to fish in my pond, you got to get it from the guy who owns the pond." God bestows manhood upon us as males. He created us for manhood, but we have to submit to him, submit our will to him before we can take that path. He's the gatekeeper. He bestows it. The second facet of manhood is honor. Now, we all know honor is a good thing. I mean, we should be honorable. And if you ask people to define that, you actually get a pretty wide range of answers. It's being courageous, it's being good. Well, if you really look into the concept of honor, it has to do with value. It has to do with giving things their proper place. So if something's honorable, then we should venerate that thing. We should hold it up and give it lots of respect. And being honorable means to basically value things correctly. To treat things that are valuable like they're valuable. And to treat things that are worthless like they're worthless. That's also important. Too many times in today's culture, we treat things that are worthless like they're valuable, like Facebook or TikTok. And then we treat things that are valuable like they're worthless, like our time, like our health, like our relationships. And so, thank you for pressing the like button. Please, everybody, like the video and share it. And subscribe if you haven't yet. So, to be honorable means just to value things rightly. And that means if I've got a decision to make about how to spend my time, I should be looking at that decision from the point of value, the point of view of which of these two things that I could be doing is the most valuable. Because my time is the most valuable thing of all. It's just a breath. And we treat it like we've got all the time in the world. The average American teenager, young man, spends more than 4 hours a day engaged in completely passive activity. Things that are not profitable in any way, shape, or form, and in fact are very likely harmful to him and to his society. Men were made to conquer, to protect, to build. And if a guy is spending his time in worthless pursuits, then he's not living up to his... What's up?
Sorry to interrupt. Shopify is saying that everything's sold out. So we still have 12 copies of each.
Okay.
They need to email, and I'll just deal with them individually.
Okay, all right.
Okay?
So Connie says that Shopify is showing everything sold out now. We have about 12 copies left of Making Men and More Elite Soldier and Bulletproof here. We've sold a lot of these lately. So if you want those, she says to email her, hotzoneholton@gmail.com, and she will take the orders until they're gone. Okay? Thank you very much, Shannon. Very, very kind. So honor just means value things rightly. Now let's go to the next step. A man, when you have sons and they're little, they're very inwardly focused. They're very focused on their own needs, their own comfort, fun. They're very focused on fun. Fun. Everything has to be fun. If it's not fun, this is boring. You know, that's like the worst possible thing for a young man. And that was code in our house for, I need work to do. But when you start to see your sons make that shift from inward focused to outward focused, you know that they're becoming a man. So you could dump a trash can full of nasty kitchen garbage in the middle of the living room floor, and then watch your sons, watch boys go by, and a boy is going to walk by that and go like, ew, and just go around it and keep playing. It would never occur to a boy that he should maybe do something about that problem and pick it up. But when you start to see your sons actually go, that shouldn't be there, and scoop it up and put it away without somebody telling them to do it, then you know that they're becoming a man. And so when I was focusing on trying to train my sons to be men, one of the things that I worked really hard on was, don't make me tell you to make the world a better place. You should be looking around yourself and finding ways to make the world a better place without anybody telling you to. That's called assess and improve. Okay, that's the A in shape. Assess and improve. A boy, when he becomes a man, should be assessing the world around him, keeping his head on a swivel, and saying, how do I make this better? How do I improve on this? And when he starts to consistently do that, then you know he's becoming a man. And he can know. I mean, ask my son. You want to know if you're a man? You don't need a tattoo in the middle of your face. I just need to know if you picked up your room today. I need to know if you made your bed. I need to know if you saw that guy throw a hamburger wrapper on the ground walking into Walmart, if you went over and picked it up and put it away. Put it in the trash. That's what a man does. So if you want to know if you're a man, that's what a man does. Now, please, I'm sure that I've got some people, I'm trying to kind of tune out the comments a little bit because I get too distracted reading them, but I want to make sure that women aren't saying, well, are you saying women don't do this? I don't know why people, especially on YouTube, it seems, try very, very hard to find an offense in anything that people say. Try very, very hard to get upset and to be offended by something that is said all the time. Maybe it's just part and parcel of American culture anymore. They don't do that in Panama, and one of the things I really like about Panama is they don't go looking to be offended about things. And so when I show up after being gone for 3 months, my friends will say, wow, you got really fat, and so did your wife. And they don't mean it to be offensive. They're just stating the fact. And so we've learned that that's actually kind of liberating, to not go around either on pins and needles or walking on eggshells trying to keep from offending people, and also not go around looking for a reason to be offended. So if you're a woman out there, please don't get offended because I'm talking specifically to men or about men right now. I'm not saying women aren't any of these things. I'm just saying that if you want to know if a guy is a good man, these are some things to look for. So assess and improve. He's going to look at the world around him and say, how do I make this better? All the time. The next step is kind of an outgrowth of that. And it's the P in shape is perish and provide. Now, it could have been die, but then it would have been the shade of a man, and that didn't really make sense. So it's perish and provide. A man dies to his own desires to provide for the needs of others. A man puts other people's needs before his own. A boy is selfish. A boy is self-centered and egotistical, egocentric. What are people thinking when they look at me? What are people, perceiving about me? Am I cool? Am I a tough guy? So I gotta, wear a muscle shirt and get big muscles, and I've gotta, get my tattoo sleeves going, all that, so people think I'm a big tough guy. No, that's not what it means to be a tough guy. To be a tough guy means to give up the things you want to give other people the things that they need. To put other people's needs before your own. And if you want to do that with sleeves on, great, have at it. But dying to your own desires is a very difficult thing to do. And it's a constant process. But it's also the one thing that will make you most fulfilled in this life. And that's the paradox there, is that people think, oh, what, so being a man is you're supposed to be miserable all the time? You don't get it. If that's what you think, you don't get it. When you die to your own desires to provide for the needs of others, what you find is the very thing that you were created to do. And that's the one place where you will be most fulfilled in this life. And can it be miserable? Yes. Is it a sacrifice? Well, if it's not a sacrifice, then it's not a sacrifice. But that is what men were created to do. So if I'm teaching my son about manhood, I need to teach him. We have a farm here. When we lived here at the lodge, we had all kinds of animals. We We called ourselves Infertility Farm because we couldn't even raise rabbits. They'd all die. The only thing we raised without killing them was kids. But we tried everything. We had goats, we had sheep, we had rabbits, we had chickens, we had ducks, we had pigs, we had horses and cows, we had everything. And it was fun. I mean, it was great. I would go back to those. I would give every penny I have to go right back and start those days all over again from the first day we bought our first farm, and do it all over again with nothing different. All the hardship, all the uncertainty, all the difficulty. Thank you, Stephen. That's very kind of you. I would give it all up again to go back to those days. What wonderful days those were. But one of the reasons that we got animals was because I wanted my kids to learn to care for things that were helpless, that needed them, and to put other things before themselves. So when it was time to eat breakfast, and their kids are sitting down to eat breakfast, and say, wait a minute, did you feed the animals yet? Oh, you didn't? Well, we don't eat before our animals do. So get out there and feed your animals, and then you can come sit down for breakfast. That was a way of training our kids to put others before themselves. And, you know, when you start to see that displayed in your children, there is no greater satisfaction on earth. I really believe that. What an incredible, incredible moment when you see your son dig into his pocket and give away all his money to somebody who needs it more than he does. Oh, you know, that is powerful. So that's the fourth facet of manhood. The fifth facet in the acronym shape is the E, and the E stands for engage. See, a man has to be engaged in every area of his life. The opposite of being engaged is being passive. And passivity, unfortunately, is the default setting for men. Every man. That's part of our sin nature. We want to be passive. Passivity is easy. It's comfortable. It's safe. Passivity is more than just being a lump on the couch, though. Passivity can take the form of being passive-aggressive. It can take the form of being abusive. Passivity is any time that I do not live up to the expectations of the Most High God for me. So in every situation, in my spiritual life, in my physical life, in my emotional life, my relational life, my financial life, my academic life, my business life, and my social life. In all of those places, if I'm not engaged, then I am passive. And when I'm passive, I'm weak. A passive man is weak and cowardly. But an engaged man, to the extent that I engage in any of those areas of my life, I become powerful as a man. I have the ability to impact the world around me when I engage with the world around me. And that starts with the guy that I shave. When I'm engaging with myself, then I'm improving my value to the world every day. And so my book Prowess basically takes that concept of engaging and breaks it down even further and makes a whole book out of it. Because that there's a lot to unpack there for sure. And so unfortunately I'm out of Prowess completely. You can still buy it on Amazon, and you can get the audio version. Maybe we'll get the link to the audio version and put it up for you. You can email Connie if you want to get that again. I just don't have any copies, hard copies here to sign anymore. We're sold out of those. So that is making men. It's the concept of making a curriculum out of manhood. You know, our schools today, they spend so much time teaching people about oh my gosh, science and social studies and heaven forbid, social justice and all this garbage. We wouldn't need to train our kids about social justice if we just train them how to be good men and women. We wouldn't need to train our kids on a whole lot of things if we just worked on giving them wisdom instead of knowledge. The knowledge would come if we gave them wisdom. And so that's what basically all of my books are about. They're about imparting wisdom or helping us be motivated to be autodidactic when it comes to wisdom. In the first the first chapter of Proverbs, it says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction." The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. It's not the kind of fear that means I, shudder and run away when I think about God or when it's time to talk to God. The fear of the Lord is honoring God, giving him his proper place as the Most High. They call him the Most High for a reason, because he's the most valuable. Right there at the top. He's above family, he's above safety, he's above comfort, he's above pride. And that's what it means to be a man, is putting God in his proper place, and everything else kind of falls where it ought to once we do that. So I hope that this has been helpful for you. I'll take a couple questions if anybody has some, and then I've got to go prepare for the CBN live that I'm going to do. Let's see. I'm just going to look here. I get a lot of questions from single women who say, wow, I really wish that there was a man in my life who could train my sons to do this. And it is important. I mean, a boy, God made women incredibly strong because so many men abdicate their responsibility and bail. And so women have to take up the slack in many cases. That said, a woman only ever makes a second-rate man, and a man only ever makes a second-rate woman. We were both created with specific roles in mind. And we live in a fallen world. We live in a place where this place is broken. So it's probably not going to be perfect. And when it's not perfect, we have to make the best of it. One of the ways that I would suggest, if you have sons and you're a single mom and you want to raise them to be men, is that you go and you find some men in your church. If you don't have a church, step one, fix that problem, get a church. That's one of the reasons God gave us church, is so that we'd have a community of people who could help us and support us. That's what churches are all about. But go find a man in your church and say, could you mentor my son? And to see if you can find somebody who can do that. Get him a copy of this book. Go through it with him. Thank you, Yo. We have to figure out how the Abrahamic families can work together and help each other. Looking forward to your thoughts. Are you talking about Christians and Jews? That's one thing that I found interesting when I was in Israel is Christians, especially evangelical Christians, very strongly support Jews, but it doesn't really go the other way. Jews could kind of take it or leave it when it comes to Christianity. And I think maybe that's unfortunate because we are commanded to love you. We are commanded to love Jews, and we do. There's a lot, I mean, that doesn't mean we have to like everything about Israel necessarily. There's a lot of political stuff and social stuff that I certainly don't agree with that happens over there, just like it does here in the States. But we do support Israel, and I think Israel could go further to supporting Christians. Can you talk about self-defense as a Christian? Okay, USMC 2146. Let's talk about self-defense as a Christian. I'm not sure what you really want me to talk about. Like whether we should make that a priority? Of course we should. One of the things that is a man's responsibility when he gets a family is to provide for them a safe and peaceful place for them to develop, inside which, a bubble inside which your family can live out and become the people that God created them to be. And so that means that you have to provide for them, you have to protect them, and you have to give them affection. Provision, protection, and affection. Those are the three main responsibilities of a man in the context of his family and his society even. Provision, protection, and affection. So we need to train our sons on that. I trained all of my sons and my daughters to protect themselves. We have a range here on the farm, and we regularly would go out and shoot on the range. But I think that's sort of like I say, if you put things in their proper perspective, if you follow these 5 things, then your son's going to naturally want to protect those he loves. Because if he understands that dying to his own desires to provide for the needs of others is part of what it means to be a man, then protecting them is a foregone conclusion, right? Okay, let's see what else. 39-year-old male here. How do I learn to forgive past abuses from parents, and how do I raise my kids around them? Nobody's parents are perfect. Your parents may have been abusive, and you can learn from them and be grateful for what you learned from them because you learned how not to be a parent. My parents are great. I mean, I wouldn't trade them for yours, but I came from a very, very functional family. I had a very godly father. But my dad didn't know much about money. What he knew about money kept us pretty much broke for most of my life at home. And so I would not emulate my dad's approach to money, but I can be grateful that he showed me what not to do, and that I grew up and matured to the point where I understood that that was what not to do, and I can be better than that. So forgiveness is a decision. You got to make the decision to forgive your family. It's not the kind of thing that is going to just come. Question, what should we do in the event of an EMP attack on America? Well, I think maybe preparing for it ahead of time might be good. But I actually made a whole documentary about this. And if you go to my locals page, just go to chuckholton.com or chuckholton.locals.com. They both go to the same place. You can, if you subscribe there, you can watch my documentaries on an EMP attack and preparation for one. You may have to scroll down. It's a ways down, but you can search for it and find my documentaries on that. Explain your thoughts on manhood and worship, how they go hand in hand. For me, the most powerful times of worship in my life have been by myself out in the woods in what I call God's cathedral. Being alone with God in his nature, I think, is something that's innate in most men. And that when they get out there, you get so awed by it, it brings you to tears. There are an infinite number of ways to worship. And I've of course, traveling as much as I do, I've been to about every kind of church there is. And so I've been to the churches where you keep your hands in your pockets the whole time. And I've been to churches where you get your workout and your worship all at the same time. And I can enjoy both of those. I don't think one is necessarily right and one's wrong. I think that God made so many different, he allowed there to be so many different denominations and types of worship style, so that you couldn't have an excuse to say, well, there just wasn't one that fit me. Just wasn't one I felt comfortable with. If you can't find a church you feel comfortable with, you're not trying hard enough, because there's churches that cover the entire spectrum. Okay? All right, so let's see what else. EMP attack, that's interesting. How can I better support my husband in rearing our son to be a man? Well, get him this book. If you can talk your husband into reading this book, what I've found is that it changes your husband as much as it changes your son. I've had many, many women, when I've spoken on this topic, come to me and just in tears say, I just wish that my husband would read this book because he's so passive. And I think men, it's easy not to see our own passivity until somebody kind of starts pointing it out. And so something like this, it serves to do that. It did it in my life. Going through this process, coming up with this 5-step process, helped me understand areas where I was being passive. And when you are passive, it creates resentment and fear in those around you. And so I would say, first of all, if you can get him to read the book, it might change your life because it might change his life. But secondly, I think that women need to understand that they possess the most powerful force in the universe when it comes to men. And so men will live up to your expectations of them if you make your expectations clear. And if your husband's being passive in an area, then I think it's important to verbalize that respectfully, lovingly, but to be strong enough as a woman to say, honey, I feel like you're being passive in this area. Here's why I feel that way. And I know that you don't want to create resentment in me and in our family, in our kids, but that's what happens when you are passive. And so I'm just telling you this because I respect you, I honor you, and I love you, and I want our relationship to be as strong as it possibly can be. So if there's something that I see that I feel like is passivity on your part, I hope you would trust me enough. You would trust in the love and the care that I have for you to listen to me when I tell you this in love. Maybe you have to write that down in a letter and give it to him, because I know how conversations like that can go with your spouse. Since I came out with this book, my wife has been able to point out passivity in my life from time to time. She actually wrote a letter, which I think I put in the end of the book here. She wrote a letter to me after I had written the book. My wife gave me this letter, and I wonder if is it here in the back of the book? Let's see. Well, there's the study guide. Well, I thought it was in here. I thought it was in here someplace. But what she did, she wrote this letter that said, as you've gone through the process of writing this book, I have seen your life change. and it has been very good for our relationship. And she was very grateful that I had gone through this process. I've talked to men who have, one guy that I knew who wrote me a letter after the book came out and said his wife had just left him, and he was a deacon in his church. He had no idea, that there was anything wrong until he came home one day and she was gone. She said, "I can't take it anymore. I'm out of here." And he was just baffled and really, depressed. And he picked up that book and read it and started seeing the passivity in his own life. And so he started making a list of the places where he was passive in the front of the book. When he was done, he took that book and he mailed it to his wife and said, "Look, I want you to read this book, but I want you to know that list in the front of the book, everything on that list is going to change in my life." And after about a week, she wrote him back and said, "If you're serious about this, I'm coming home." And their relationship was restored because he addressed the passivity in his own life. So, thank you very much. We're just coming up on an hour. So let's pray, and then I'm going to go get ready for my CBN Live. God bless you all. I really appreciate you all, and I pray that this will be an important live, that you will have learned something or gotten something out of this that will make your life better as well. So, Lord Jesus, I just thank you so much for bringing us together in this way today, for giving us the technology to spread this message. We know, Lord, that there are so many men around the world that are in desperate need of a little wisdom, of addressing the passivity in their lives. And I pray, Lord, that you would just give them the impetus to do so. I submit myself to you once again, Lord, and I pray that your will would be done and not mine. Father, I ask that you would give me a sense of honor, to give things their proper place in my life and not put anything above you or my family or my health. Lord, I ask that you would make me the kind of man who makes the world a better place, and who assesses and improves the world around him. I ask that you would show me where I need to die to my own desires to provide for the needs of others. And I ask, Lord, that you would help me to engage with those around me and with myself. I pray in Jesus' name, amen. All right, folks, thank you very much for watching. God bless you. And tomorrow, there's a video coming out on my hot zone here that is kind of cool. It's a look back at Rio Hato and the invasion of Panama 34 years ago. Tonight was actually into the 20th, because we actually parachuted in at like 1 a.m. on the 20th. But this time, 34 years ago, we were getting on the planes. We were marshaling up at Fort Benning and other places, getting ready to go invade the country of Panama. So that'll be an interesting video. I encourage you to go watch. God bless y'all. Enjoy.